洪启莹 Pinky 是 Avenidas 华人社区中心主任，也是今天的网上健康讲座的研讨会的主持人。Avenidas 在湾区已经接近52年的非牟利组织，提升人与人之间的关系、共融，还有身心健康。这个网上健康讲座将会在20秒以后开始。那今天我们非常的荣幸有这个机会跟史丹福大学的医疗团队合作。在此呢，我代表华人社区中心向你介绍我们史丹福大学医疗保健癌症支持护士专案负责人 Esther 钱小姐，和今天我们的嘉宾讲员 Erika Corner， 欢迎他们。
Thank you, Pinky, for such a kind introduction. I have the privilege to introduce you our very own oncology dietitian at the Cancer Center at Stanford. She comes with 20 years of clinical experience, very well versed in the Asian diet. Without further delay, here is Erika. Feel free to share your screen now, Erika.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay, yes. And can everybody hear me? Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here today. We will be talking about the best diet, the best regimen for cancer prevention today. So let's get started because I do not want to run out of time. So there are, there we go. Sorry. So there are 10 recommendations, and we're going to go over all of those in as much detail as I can. So the first is to be a healthy weight. We want to keep our weight within a healthy range and avoid weight gain in adult life. It really is important to maintain a healthy weight, which is actually one of the most important things that you can do to reduce your cancer risk. Mainly because body fat releases hormones, which can spur cancer growth. These are, this is an infograph, just really showing the relationship between obesity and cancer. Obesity does have a direct correlation to 12 cancers that are all listed between everything, mouth and neck, all the way down to endometrial and prostate cancer. So one of the best pieces of advice to protect yourself is to move more, as much as you can, safely, and to eat smart. This is hopefully a very helpful tool to help you understand what a healthy weight is. So on the left side, you go with your height. And if anybody's shorter than 5 feet, kind of have to play along with the chart a little. Weight is on the top. And so you find your weight, you find your height, and then you meet in the middle. And this will help you distinguish if you are a healthy weight, which is the yellow, if you are underweight, the green and blue, and then if you are overweight and beyond is the orange and the red. The second recommendation is to be physically active. Physical activity in any form decreases our cancer risk. In addition to preventing weight gain, activity helps to prevent cancer through regulating those hormone levels. It's the same hormone levels that, if we are overweight, can become a problem. The goal for activity is to really aim for about 150 minutes of moderate activity weekly. Now, I like to put my own little spin on this, really enforcing the need for safety also. So, and the other thing too is really to focus on all kinds of movement, from walking to maybe even chair exercises, to Tai Chi, to yoga, to stretching, things like that. Really important. So anything to basically reduce sedentary time. Okay, so if you do have a hard time walking around, or again moving your lower body, it is also helpful again to whether you're sitting in a chair and arm movements, anything like that, it all counts. Number 3, to eat a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, fruits, and beans. So generally the recommendation, actually for all cuisines, is really to try to get your plate or your bowl, whatever you're eating from, is really trying to shoot for about 2/3 being more plant foods, which again, different whole grains, vegetables, and a wide variety of vegetables, wide variety of fruits, and wide variety of beans. These all provide important phytochemicals. These, biologically active compounds do help protect cells from damage of all different kinds. So really important. And they are also lower in calories, all of these foods. So they can also help to maintain a healthy weight, and certainly to also get you to a healthy weight. The one thing I will add here is many people ask, what is the best vegetable? What is the best fruit? To be honest, there really isn't the best. They all have very different properties depending on their color and the family that they come from. I usually like to suggest, let's keep it simple and choose green, choose yellow, choose purple, choose red, and choose what you like is more important too. I will touch on soy here, also being part of the plant foods. Their confusion often arises from the term phytoestrogens in soy. Soy foods do not contain estrogen. That's the important thing. The chemical structure of soy looks similar to estrogen. However, it's not the same thing as female estrogens. The interesting thing I also like to add about previous studies, which sort of help to create all of this confusion, is that a lot of these studies were done on mice and rats. Come to find out that mice and rats metabolize phytoestrogens differently than humans. So the rodent metabolism actually leads to a higher level of these active forms of these isoflavones compared to humans. So when these higher levels were thought to be a problem, come to find out that the same thing doesn't happen in humans. So what we want to do is encourage whole soy foods, just like we want to encourage all whole foods. I would rather you eat the apple as opposed to apple chips. I would rather you eat, the vegetable as opposed to some highly processed, vegetable concoction. So whole soy foods include, listed here, your soybeans, soy milk, tofu, tempeh, soy nuts, and miso. What we want to avoid are those highly processed items like the soy patties, to mimic a burger. Those types of things, they not only have a long ingredient list, but highly processed. So again, just some things to remember or to think about with regard to that. Soy consumption also has actually been associated with a reduced risk of breast cancer and recurrence. So not only initial breast cancer, but also breast cancer recurrence and mortality. So as long as we're focusing on the whole soy food, perfectly fine, perfectly safe. For anybody who does not like soy food, again, you do not need to force yourself to eat it. But if you do like it and you choose whole soy foods, we're right on target. Number 4 is to limit the consumption of fast foods and just really, kind of the junk kind of foods. Really important. There is strong evidence that consuming fast foods and what's known as the Western diet do cause weight gain. Please limit the consumption of these processed foods like the chips and the cookies and all these things. They do taste good, but I also like to bring people to the reality of how do they make you feel? Usually once you eat something, usually not so good. So some things to keep on hand. Here it says carrot sticks or hummus. Things like that. If you prefer, obviously, things like cooked vegetables and things like that, focus on snacking on those, or saving fruit is, for a snack is also a fantastic option. So a lot of things that certainly can be put in place to avoid these little culprits. And finally, at the store, really trying to, reduce packaged foods, become familiar with the food label, because all of these packaged foods are either going to be high in sugar, high in salt, high in a lot of ingredients, sometimes that we can't even pronounce. So, all the more reason to, again, go back and eat your whole foods. And here's another little informational piece on, these highly processed foods, specifically sugars. People always have a question about sugars. These are examples of added sugars. Our goal is not to reduce carbohydrates. Our goal is really to try to reduce added sugars. And these are quite a long list of all of the added sugar options that are in foods. So for men, we usually like to suggest to keep added sugars to about 9 teaspoons, which equals about 36 grams. For women, about 6 teaspoons, which equals about 24 grams. This is helpful when you do look at a food label, and now the new food labels do have an additional row that says added sugars. So hopefully that is an easy tool now for consumers. Number 5 is limiting the consumption of red and processed meats. So again, really looking at how much and what, and also how it's cooked. So there is convincing evidence that red meat, which is beef, pork, and lamb, are causes of colorectal cancer. Modest consumption, which is under 12 to 18 ounces per week, does not measurably increase the risk. Evidence is just as convincing for processed meats, which include things that have been smoked or cured, salted, fermented, and obviously things with the added preservatives. So these are, again, the culprits that can increase risk. The latest research, with regard to eating more than 18 ounces of red meat, they're not exactly sure how the red meat exactly affects the development of these cancers. There are a couple thoughts, one being how things are cooked, which includes high heat for a very short period of time. So things that are charred, especially grilling. When you char meats, we really want to encourage people to try not to char meats. What happens is there's these chemicals that once the meat is charred, they sort of switch. They switch characteristics. And so that's one of the pieces of what kind of meat it is, and again, how it is cooked. So one suggestion is slow and low. And then also to make sure you're, as much as possible, trying to get a good quality meat. Number 6 is limiting the consumption of sugar-sweetened drinks. So again, I think this is a lot of, has to do with adopting the Western diet. Certainly Americans love sugar. So there is a strong evidence that consuming these sugary drinks can cause weight gain. Well, we talked about weight, being overweight and obesity being linked to 12 cancers. So that is one of the biggest struggles and really challenges with regard to a high sugar diet. It provides much, really like a big issue with regard to unnecessary calories. Some ideas is a still or sparkling water is refreshing and a healthy choice. You can certainly add, this is a nice picture here, adding a little bit of fruit to add some flavor. And certainly I know with regard to the Chinese community, we all love our tea. So it's also just enjoying the tea for what it is. Certainly, if you do need a little touch of sweetness, you can use something like natural honey, but just be aware of how much you use. The other important thing to just realize too is there are some very beneficial, what's called polyphenols in teas and coffee. So I don't want to deter people from drinking their teas and their coffee. The concern is what we put in it. So another piece of, again, more of a whole food, enjoying the food for what it is as much as possible. And number 7, to really try to reduce, limit, avoid alcohol consumption. So it is a potent carcinogen, and it is linked to 6 different cancers. If you do choose to drink, we really highly suggest to just keep it to a minimum, really trying to moderate your intake. One question we often get asked is, it says here, 1 drink for women and 2 drinks for men per day. If I don't drink all week, can I have more on Friday or Saturday? And the answer is no. Really, it's trying to just limit overall intake. The more you drink, the higher your risk. So it really doesn't get any more complicated really than that. So again, it's taking a look at ways to reduce that. Sometimes just really picking and choosing when you are going to, enjoy a cocktail or a wine or beer. Number 8, almost there, is we actually do, it is suggested to not use supplements for cancer prevention. Really try to aim to meet nutrition needs through diet alone. For most people, it is possible to obtain adequate nutrition from a healthy diet that includes all of the foods that we talked about and beverages. Multivitamins and specific supplements, for some pieces of the population who stand to benefit from them are appropriate. Oftentimes it could be some, calcium for women, if anybody is dealing with any deficiency, that is absolutely an appropriate situation. And an example of why is just one example of actually a few, is that high dose beta carotene supplements, which were widely used for many years ago, have been linked to an increased risk for lung cancer in not only current, but also former smokers. So it really is wise to talk to a physician or find out if there's anybody within your physician practice who is knowledgeable, including a dietitian, to get some answers about supplements. I do not include things like herbs and spices in this. When we talk about supplements, we're talking about the capsules, the pill popping, not the use of cinnamon or garlic or turmeric or anything like that in the kitchen. All of that is encouraged, but we really want to minimize the pill pop. And number 9 is for the younger folks. For mothers, we do encourage breastfeeding. There is strong evidence that breastfeeding helps protect against breast cancer in the mother. 2 reasons is first, breastfeeding lowers the levels of some cancer-related hormones in the mother. And second, at the end of breastfeeding, the body gets rid of any cells in the breast that may have DNA damage. So, and then also that babies who are breastfed are less likely to become overweight and obese. Now, having said that, if a new mother is having a hard time breastfeeding or does not want to breastfeed, there's a number of reasons why the breastfeeding piece may not work, is move on. Again, this should not be something that causes extra anxiety, because we certainly know that stress also is not good for our bodies. So again, it's working with your medical team and work what works best for you as well. And finally, as far as the recommendations, before, during, after any kind of cancer diagnosis, and certainly not only for prevention initially, but also to prevent recurrence. Anyone who has received a cancer diagnosis should hopefully receive some specialized nutrition advice. It's always helpful, especially if the treatment course has been pretty invasive and sometimes complicated. What I mean by that is if it includes surgery, especially surgery to the digestive tract, or head and neck, that can get in the way of eating well and eating some of these really healthy foods. Once treatment has completed, to really aim to follow these recommendations the best possible. Certainly some things that are well known, but I will repeat, is to avoid smoking or other exposure to tobacco, avoid excess sun, avoid excess alcohol, all those things, including, excess intake salt and saturated fats. So hopefully this is a informative and motivating for people to take a look at their diets and to, make sure that they are on the right track and thinking, what could I do to make my nutrition regimen even better? Is there something that I'm maybe eating or drinking a little too much of that I should? So that concludes the presentation, and I am ready for some questions. Before we go into questions real quick, this is the some information about the supportive care program at Stanford, which I cannot say enough good things about. I think I refer somebody to this program at least once a day. This is just a number of the fantastic things that they offer, and it's a free service. Thank you. Pinky, you want to help me with questions?
Sure. We have the first question. What is your opinion on using the new Instant Pot, a primary method of cooking chicken or proteins instead of frying? Thanks.
I love the Instapot. It is great. And here's why, actually, because generally the Instapot is, you know, it's not such a high heat initially. And so, you know, it's variable. You know, for the most part, it's kind of a slower, lower cooking. But I mean, I know that there's definitely different ranges of it and you know, time frames. But it's a great, it is a great option for sure. That, you know, again, there's lots of different resources with regard to that. The Instapot not only has, I believe, comes with recipes, or, you know, the website comes with recipes, but they can be easily found online. But there's a lot of really great, healthy Instapot recipes out there.
Thank you. The next question we have, how would you rank the the different method of cooking of the most health benefits, nutrition preserving methods?
Oh, well, so again, it would be the methods that have the slowest or the lowest and sort of the slowest kind of methods, meaning, and having said that too, there are some tricks that you can do with regard to, let's say, grilling. An example of grilling, a grilling tip is you can marinate. Marinate actually helps to protect the meat on the grill. The other thing is another suggestion. People don't always like it, but you can pre-cook in the oven and finish it off on the grill. When it comes to grilling, or actually really anything over high heat too, is the more you poke anything, the juices flow out, and then that's usually what stirs up the flames. So I suggest try not to poke so much. So there are a couple different suggestions. Some people will ask too, well, what if I sear? If I sear and I fry real quickly, and then I turn the temperatures down. Again, anytime we can turn the temperatures down and cook for longer, it's going to be better. So baking as an example, you know, if you're baking at 350, that's, you know, certainly safe. Frying, it really depends. Because again, if we're frying really fast at a high heat, you know, again, we kind of want to reconsider. The other thing to remember is this actually only has to do with animal protein. So I want to make sure I clarify that. This is not stir frying vegetables. Vegetables and fruit, this kind of characteristic does not happen. So it's only in animal protein. So things like baking or slow cooking, if it's an Instapot over, you know, again, a slow and low is better, as opposed to grilling, stir frying the meats, things like that.
Thank you. Just want to friendly remind for those folks that raising your hand, we don't have the raising hand function. If you could put your in Chinese or English in the Q&A, that will be wonderful. Thank you very much for your understanding. And the next question, what is the ratio of protein, fat, and carbohydrates that I need to maintain per serving?
Oh, okay. One concern is that you're actually asking that question per serving or per meal. I don't want people to get too nervous about, kind of these ratios. I would go back to the example of like the plate idea. Is you really want 2/3 of your plate or your bowl to be, predominantly your veggies and your grain, and then really the 1/3 being your protein component or your animal protein. One of the things to think about too is thinking of animal protein almost like a condiment, not as a big piece of meat taking over your plate or, on the top of a soup bowl. It really is it's a complementary addition into a soup, or a meal. So I would say, to answer the question, it's 1/3 of the protein component. We really I want to say more veggies, as many veggies as possible. And then really the rest of your plate being the starch. So, as far as that would be kind of the ratio component of it. Now, if you do not have an animal protein and you're a vegetarian, things like that, again, more veggies. You can have, the bit of starch in there, whether it's, rice, noodle, things like that. And then maybe as far as whether you have tofu, bean, things like that, that actually acts very similarly to, kind of to the protein component. But again, it's a little bit less strict, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. And then one more question, then I pass the next question to Esther. So one more question is about, you mentioned tofu, and this question is, should we avoid organic protein powder, which is plant-based for preventing, sorry, the check, it's just moving, plant-based for preventing breast cancer?
Okay. Yeah, I think I knew where that question was going anyway. So good question. So what is suggested if you're going to use a protein powder is actually the plant-based protein powders are fine. What you want to look for, though, is if it's a mixed plant-based, is like if it's a pea and rice and oat component, that's what you're looking for. What is suggested at this point actually is to avoid the soy protein powders. Again, all of the protein powders are considered processed, but as far as the soy protein powders, again, with the soy isoflavones that are highly processed, your best bet is honestly, if you wanted to use soy and use it in a smoothie or something like that, I really will oftentimes suggest using like a silken tofu. Go with, again, more of the whole foods, but there certainly are quite a few good plant-based proteins, but what we want to do is look for, kind of the pea protein components as opposed to soy. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Erika. And the next question that we have from one of the participants is lutein and zeaxanthin considered beta-carotene supplement? What is its impact on non-smoking males versus non-smoking male versus smoking male, as has suggested by the earlier slide that you had put up?
Read that question. Read the second part of the question again.
What is the impact for the beta-carotene supplement for non-smoking male versus smoking male?
Okay. So again, my question would be, with regard to, again, a supplement, so a pill form, is why are we focusing on these components of a supplement when we can focus on the foods and the vegetables that are actually providing a whole myriad of these phytonutrients. So, and the thing that I think about is some people will say, oh, well, I'm taking a supplement because I can't eat enough vegetables or things like that. There's also little tricks to all of that. There's many ways of adding in a variety of vegetables to pretty much any meal, including blending things into soups and things like that. So again, what I think people tend to want to try to do is they want to try to pluck out these, lone soldiers, so to speak, of these phytochemicals, when we really get the benefits from the whole food itself. With regard to these particular supplements, in smoking, non-smoking men, again, they're not necessarily, in the same class, but again, I'd probably have to look up any, latest, and I would look up latest research, not necessarily old research, with regard to these classes, with the smoking versus non-smoking males. It's just really suggested to, not mess around with the supplements, especially in high doses. So I will add a little comment to this question as well. Oftentimes people think, oh, if a little bit is good, more is better. And so instead of taking 1 capsule or 2 capsules, they take 4 or more. I really want to encourage people to not do that. That's exactly where we get into trouble. Things can certainly get in the way of each other. Certain supplements can actually cause not only digestive issues, but also dizziness, headache, all those types of things. So I really want to have people be cautious.
Thank you, Erika. So actually it's from the same participant. The next question is, should cancer patients afford a large amount of antioxidant-rich food or drinks or supplements, which may reduce the efficacy of chemotherapy or radiation therapy?
Another good question. And to answer that, the food, we don't worry about the food. And this is also something that I think that we have to explain quite a bit. I get often people will say, oh, I heard I'm not supposed to eat blueberries while I'm undergoing radiation. No, that's not the case. We want you to eat all the things that we talked about earlier, fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Where things split is whole foods, we welcome. The supplement piece is where, what we call kind of a gray area, sometimes a red area, in the setting of chemotherapy and radiation. High doses of supplemented antioxidants have been shown to get in the way of radiation therapy treatments.
Thank you, Erika.
You're welcome.
Would like to see the BMI chart again. Yes, Brenda, the second part of the question, able to put it with Avenita's for later view. I think this recorded video in English is going to be available to send it out to all the participants, so you can review the BMI chart later. But if you would like to see the chart,
I can go back.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Erika.
There we go.
So for later view. So here's the chart for review. I'm moving on to the next question from Peter. A favorite water drink ice water, ice zero, very low calories. Is that okay to drink? Favorite water, like all those raspberry favorite water, sparkling water, zero, ice with zero.
Okay, yes, another good question. So these drinks, they can differ a little bit. So there are these waters or the carbonated waters that have the natural flavorings in there. And that's like the Soleil or, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the names of these, that, you know, are fine. They have the natural essence of these flavors. When it comes to a product that actually has a sugar substitute in it, and I believe some of the ice zeros do. So I'm just trying to bring myself back to that product. We want to be careful about sugar substitutes. And actually, really, I'll explain why this is a big thing. What happens when we continuously drink something sweet, and it's really sweet, some of these natural essence of, you know, strawberry or whatever, it's a very mild flavor. Some of these other products, and I know I've had one of these ice zeros before, they are quite sweet. What happens is our taste buds and our brain, the two talk to each other quite often, and we can actually get used to it. And so then our taste buds and our brain, it creates that craving where we always want something sweet. So I really caution people who drink, whether it's diet soda or these diet sweetened things from Snapple. And so the other thing is, if you have an ice zero, look at the label. If it has even things like stevia in it, I will say it doesn't necessarily make it better. Because I don't want it to cause this constant craving of sugar or sweets. That can be really detrimental, and to be quite honest, very frustrating for you, because it will happen. So really trying to kind of limit these sugary things, but also the sugar substitute sweetened items as well. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Erika.
Okay.
It seems like we actually have quite two questions specifically on Instant Pot cooking. Is there a specific, the highest temperature that we should be cooking our food in that is within the safe parameter that you would recommend?
Let's see. Generally, I really like to keep things around 350, to be quite honest. I know, obviously, that the Instant Pot goes higher. It will depend too on, again, how long and, you know, kind of the whole process. But again, anytime that you can go slower and lower, that honestly is the answer. If we can keep things, you know, around the 350 range is great. Certainly we want to, I don't like to see anything 450, 500. That again is, you know, it's a little questionable, to be quite honest, because the other thing is the Instant Pot has not necessarily been well studied in some of these actual studies. They take, you know, they're taking simply temperature into account, whether it's grilling, frying, things like that. So again, that environment where that heat is intense, you know, whether the meat is not actually touching anything, that's also something. Do these compounds react when they're just simply hit with the surrounding heat. We can assume so. But with regard to the actual Instapot and higher temperatures being studied, we don't have anything solidified at this point, but I'm just going to say anytime you can go slower and lower, you're going to be better off.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you. So what are your thoughts on tap water consumption versus filter water?
Okay. The tap water, I really like people to get in touch with knowing where their water comes from. And it's actually public, public access you can get from your water company. You can check their testing. One thing what I will bring up every single time I am asked this question, because it was a concern of mine too, as far as I remember when we first moved into our house years ago, and I took a look at one of the pipes. So it actually also will depend on the pipes in your house. You can have clean water coming in, but if your pipes are icky, then that could be a potential problem. So the tap water, having said that though, there's lots of different filters you can get. Tap water, bottled water, the other thing too is where is it coming from? I think years and years ago, they came to find out that a lot of the bottled water was actually tap water. So it's taking a look at where the water is coming from, and then as far as the testing of it. We don't want to have people drinking, too much out of plastics, certainly heated plastics, and things like that. So, and the other thing is not necessarily needing to buy bottled water all the time. Is there a way you can get, filter your tap water at home, things like that. So without, causing too much work for people, is starting with where our water comes from and taking a look at the testing, because the other thing is that, city water, it's actually tested more rigorously than bottled water. So it's taking a look at that and possibly filtering it if you need to.
I think there's actually quite a few questions on adequate protein intake. One of them is, if someone is not eating meat, how can they get adequate protein?
Oh, I like that question. Because again, this is something that is very common. People feel like, well, gosh, I need to eat meat because I need protein. That's not the case. So protein comes from a lot of different sources, and you can actually easily meet your protein needs through many of these sources, which include actually vegetables. Do not have a lot of protein, but per serving, they have about 2 grams, which if we encourage you to eat, 5, 6, or so servings a day, we're pretty close to, 15, sometimes even 20 grams of protein. So that also is, for most people, almost halfway to their protein needs, if not more. And then the other piece is your nuts and beans and seeds. Those also are fantastic protein sources. And when I mean nuts and beans and seeds, is if any of those have to be altered, if they're cooked, if they're mashed, any way that they're in something, it still counts. Then we get to the egg and fish, shellfish, and then lastly, and then poultry, and then into our meat. So one suggestion I have is to sprinkle your day with protein. So in the morning, if you're having rice porridge, or something similar, I will always ask, where is there protein in there of any kind? Is there mung bean? Is there tofu? Is, where sometimes there's fish. So it's making sure that that's a component. And then as you progress through the day, lunch, dinner, snack, is, to get those proteins in through, your nuts and beans and seeds and vegetables. So it can absolutely be done. It's just, it requires more than eating just rice.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
So we are actually going to ask 2 more questions, and we'll have to end around 1:45. So thank you, Avanidas, for the time extension. So another question that I think we should address is, what is the role of Ensure that plays in the cancer prevention, or even just the overall healthy diet?
Thank you for bringing this up. Yes, so to answer this question and hopefully kind of touch base on all aspects of it. Number one is Ensure is a complete nutrition shake. So what that means, it has a fair amount of calories, it's got a fair amount of protein, and it's fully fortified, meaning it provides about a quarter of a multivitamin. It can be a good option for some people. Now, it is sweet, and for many people, that is not good. That just doesn't work for them, doesn't work for their palate. If that's the case, that's okay. There are many products out there that are sometimes just as sweet, but sometimes less sweet. So in the line of I'll just say the commercial shakes, there's usually a helpful product that can be used as a tool for most people. Orgain is a product that, in my opinion, is a little less sweet. Kate Farms is another product that is definitely less sweet, only available online. But, again, there's many different options. The other thing too is, what is our goal? Some people actually, and I will actually recommend them drinking unsweetened soy milk, things like that, which again, we're looking for calories and protein. You can also dilute things like Ensure and Boost with unsweetened soy milk, where we're not diluting the calories, we're not diluting the protein, we're diluting the taste. So to go on with those who really don't like the Ensure, it's too sweet. Like I said, there's other options. It's, can we provide food? Or in many situations, the liquid goes down just much easier. So it's looking for a lower sugar option, sometimes like the Premier Protein or a Glucerna or something like that, that has a lower sugar content. Sometimes, again, they might taste just as sweet, but for many people, they actually taste a little bit less sweet. To kind of finish off this point, Ensure is not for everybody. These commercial shakes can be very helpful for people who, very convenient, just twist off the top. For many people, I would rather see them drink that than nothing. However, there are certainly other ways. Blending your own smoothie is definitely encouraged if you can. Blending your own soups, adding more calories, avocado, more protein into soups and blending them. Lots of different things that can be done to help meet your needs, depending on what's happening.
Okay. So we have time for one more question. And the last question that I think we should address is the benefits of juicing, like the pros and cons. I know we are quite limited on time, but if you can just share.
I can do it in a snapshot. Okay. Really, to make things simple, is our preference is for people to eat, number one. Second, blending. Third, juicing. And here's why. Eating, we get everything. We usually will not eat too much because it's filling. When you're eating the actual whole food, you're getting the proteins, you're getting the calories, you're getting the fiber, you're getting these characteristics of the food that are helping you to fill up. Blending, you're still getting all of that. It's just easier for many people to eat, as far as drinking versus eating. For many people, blending is easier on their digestion, depending on what's going on. So that is also preferred. Meanwhile, in blending, we still have the fiber. Juicing, you have your wonderful glass of juice that has a lot of really great properties. However, you've got the pile of fiber sitting next to it. One of the challenges and the problems is, I will say, one of the problems with juicing is the amount of sometimes carbohydrates, the natural sugars in the juice, with no fiber. They've done some studies on this, and they found that actually blood sugars can do the same thing with drinking a glass of just straight juice that it does when you eat white rice by itself. It has nothing, the blood sugars will go up, it has nothing to catch. So blood sugars will go up. Where fiber comes into play is when you are drinking, you're getting the natural carbohydrates. Here comes the blood sugars. Here comes the fiber, right here, boom. And then your blood sugars will level off. Fibers help to slow down this absorption of these natural carbohydrates into our system. So juicing can be part of a very healthy regimen, but I by no means encourage, large amounts of juicing, many times a day or anything. If you're juicing 4-6 ounces, that's fine. And that's fine. That's plenty. So we don't need to go too much.
Thank you again, Erika, for your expertise and your knowledge sharing. I think that was really valuable for me personally as well. And for those that have entered your questions, thank you so much for taking the time to enter your questions, and apologies that we didn't have the time to go over them, but I do encourage you to meet with your dietitian. If you are under any type of care, you can request a dietitian, especially at Stanford, there is a dietitian for every department. And I want to encourage you to also check out this Cancer Supportive Care Program website. We have quite a few lectures that, like Erika has done in the past, that addresses quite a few questions that were asked in the Q&A, such as organic versus conventional food and what type of herbal supplements you should or should not take. So we will encourage you to go on that website, stanfordhealthcare.org/cancer supportive care, to review those either lecture series that we have recorded in the past or podcasts that are currently that we have about 6 different podcasts available for on different topics that you might be interested in. So thank you so much, Pinky and Avenidas, for such a great talk. So I'm going to pass it to Pinky to wrap up.
Thank you so much. This is a wonderful workshop. I feel like we need to do part 2 or part 3 to answer all those questions. Thank you so much for everyone for your understanding. Earlier, there was a technical issue, and thank you so much for all coming back. And here we're focusing health and wellness, and we really want to invite you all to join our next Mother's Day and also highlight AAPI Heritage Month on May 5th, also a Cinco de Mayo Day. And it's going to be a bilingual program, and the day of RSVP already extended to May 3rd. Again, Avenida is focusing on health and wellness, and we're really very happy and lucky and super happy to partner with Stanford Health. And we look forward to providing more bilingual workshop and have Erika and Esther to come back again. And stay tuned, everyone. Thank you very much.